My name is Glenn Turansky, and I am a member of the advisory board of One Business World. Leading Entrepreneurs of the World features entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders presenting on cutting edge topics and the latest industry developments. Today, we're very pleased to welcome leading global entrepreneur Amira Rasool. Amira is an entrepreneur and a writer based in New York City, as well as Cape Town. She is the founder and CEO of the Folklore, an online multi-brand concept store and a wholesale e-commerce platform that distributes luxury designer fashion and lifestyle products from Africa and the diaspora to the global consumer and retail environment. The Folklore's primary mission is to supply the world with greater access to luxury goods from Africa in a convenient, ethical, and curated manner. It also serves to provide a platform for designers and other creative types to share their stories and creative abilities with new audiences around the world. Amira, we're very happy to have you here today. We'd love to hear more about your business and your company, the culture and your design, and all of the developments you've been working on here the last number of years. So welcome, and I'm happy to turn the floor over to yourself. Take care.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate the warm introduction. And I'd like to first start off by saying thank you for inviting me to speak at One Business World. I often give a lot of unsolicited advice and information about my business, so it's always great when someone actually invites me to actually talk about myself and my business. So yes, my name is Amira Rasool. I am the founder and CEO of the Folklore. We're an e-commerce platform that sells luxury designer fashion and lifestyle brands from Africa and the diaspora to global customers. So we are targeting the growing number of luxury millennial customers, primarily based in North America and Europe, who want fresh new brands, they want innovative styles, and they want to support companies that are socially and environmentally conscious. We are exposing this customer to a market that they've never had access to before. So today I would like to talk more about how we're providing this greater access to luxury goods in Africa and why it's important. And one thing that I also would love to touch on today is about value and how we place value on luxury goods and how we place value based off of where they come from. So I want to definitely, go back a bit and talk a little bit about myself and how, this idea even came about. So I thought of the idea to launch the Folklore back in 2016 when I took my first trip to South Africa. It was my first trip to Africa, period. I was an undergrad student at Rutgers, majoring in African American studies, and I also had a minor in journalism. And I got really interested in learning more about, Black people around the world and wanting to travel and spend more time in Africa. So I went over with two of my friends, and when I got there, I just fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the designers. I'd been interning at tons of magazines when I was in college, so I'd already had that interest in fashion, having interned at Women's Wear Daily when they were still a part of Condé Nast, having interned at V Magazine, The Fader, having interned at Mary Claire. Of course, when I was in South Africa, the first thing I wanted to do was go shopping. And so I found these amazing designers. I would find things either in markets or in these like cool concept stores that they'd have in Cape Town or Johannesburg. I spent about 2 weeks out there, and as much as my college bank account would allow, I purchased, these cool sandals and all different types of items while I was there. And so when I got back to New York, where I was living at the time, people started stopping me on the street. Like, where did you get these cool furry sandals? Where did you get this cool leather bag? And it made me curious. I wanted to know where I could, source these products from back home. And I started looking into how I started looking into the best way for me to source these brands. And very quickly, I noticed that the only way for me to access them is if I flew back to South Africa. And that's a very expensive journey and it's a long flight. And so I decided that I was going to do some research and find out the best way for me to connect these designers with people like myself who appreciate things that are unique, that appreciate things that tell a great story and that have some sort of cultural significance. And, you know, really things that are statement pieces. That's always been the type of person that I am. I want to wear things that, you know, are exclusive, that are beautifully made. And so I decided to quit my job. I was working at V Magazine after I returned back from Africa. So I was working there as a fashion coordinator for about a year, quit my job after I got into the University of Cape Town to pursue my master's in African studies. And I went out there and I started, actually went out and moved to Cape Town. I had no family there, no friends there. I'd only been there one time before, but I knew that there was a problem that I needed to understand more about. And I knew that based off of like my skills as someone who has, you know, worked at all of these media companies and knows how to speak to the luxury customer and the things that they're interested in, and also having access to this large network of mentors and fellow colleagues that, you know, could really help amplify these brands in a meaningful way. And really just thinking of my background and having majored in African American and African studies and being really interested in how, you know, Black uplift can come in the form of increasing economic opportunities in the community, and wanting to come into fashion from an activist lens in a way where I don't have to necessarily sacrifice me being, you know, in fashion, be able to make an impact in my community. And so finding that way to do that was really important in this journey. And as you can see, when I got there, I had a lot of fun traveling around to different parts of Africa. And I actually started my freelance writing career while I was there. So I started writing for different fashion publications like Vogue and Teen Vogue, In Style and Glamour, about a lot of the African designers that I was coming into contact with when I was traveling to Lagos, traveling to Accra, and, you know, traveling to Kenya. And the problems that I found that most of these designers had during my, you know, studies as during my journey as a writer, but also, you know, collecting information for this business that I was thinking about, was that they had a distribution problem. Like I mentioned before, when I got back from New York, when I discovered that I couldn't access their products, it was because a lot of these brands had a lack of access to different retailers. So they didn't have Saks or Nordstrom that was, you know, going and attending South African Fashion Week or Lagos Fashion Design Week. And that's how pretty much most emerging designers actually end up in the space, is through the wholesale to retail channel. And then they didn't have a lot of access to different technology platforms that make it easier for emerging brands now to have their own D2C e-commerce site. So things like Shopify, things like Wix were not readily available in all of those countries. And even when those things were readily available, trying to get customers to actually know about the brand was still a major issue. So marketing and knowing how to market properly to an international customer, which is dramatically different than how they would market to a domestic customer. And then on the customer side, customers didn't know these brands existed. I had no idea that most of these brands existed until I went to South Africa. Then it made me curious to start looking up about Nigerian brands, looking up about Kenyan brands. And on top of that, now that I found them, how do I, you know, even interact with them on from a payment standpoint, from a delivery standpoint? For the brands that did have D2C tech platforms of their own, it would cost, you know, it could cost something like $50 to $100 to ship one thing from Lagos to London directly from that designer. And then you could only pay through, you know, one or two payment channels. And then for the brands that still didn't have their own e-commerce websites, a lot of them would have, you know, their email in their Instagram bio, and you'd have to send them an email, tell them what you want. Then they'd send you their banking details. You'd wire them the money. It's made to order, so you probably, you know, they probably make it in about 3 to 5 weeks. Then it could take anywhere between 5 to 12 days to ship, and then you you know, still have to pay that premium for shipping because there's not as many flights coming out of Africa. The shipping, the premium that they put on shipping, it's very high, and it's inflated. And that's something that we're working on now, and we want to find a solution to that as well. So understanding all of these problems, having sat down with the designers in their studios all across Africa, talking to them, talking to their families, seeing how things are made, I was able to create a business plan over about a year and a half that actually combined what successful luxury retailers in the West have been doing successfully for years, and being able to craft it in a way that it will address the unique issues that designers in Africa have, that the designers in Europe and North America that most luxury retailers source from do not necessarily have themselves. And so in September 2018, I flew back from South Africa to the US to launch the Folklore as a direct-to-consumer e-commerce platform that today currently sells 35 designers across men's and women's apparel, homewares, accessories, and beauty products. So the thing that we have focused on is being able to quickly get these goods into the hands of customers, and then also being able to really tell these customers about why these brands are special, and really being able to curate it in a way that, and package it in a way that luxury customers in North America and Europe are used to. So we, our real value add here is we have these exclusive brands, whereas many multi-brand luxury retailers today, some of the most popular ones, most of them have the same brands, but 80% of the brands that we worked with were not sold outside of Africa or online until we came into the picture. So having that exclusivity, also knowing that the brands don't produce in mass quantities, and that's what makes these products even more valuable, knowing that you might have one dress and there's only 10 or there's only 20 of them that were produced. So which is one, very sustainable, and also just, who doesn't want to go to a place knowing that they might be the only person on that continent that has that dress on. We deliver to 170 countries, and we actually have a fulfillment center. We work with a 3PL in New Jersey who fulfills for some of the top designers in New York. And so with their support, we're able to deliver to over 170 countries and offer free 3 to 5 day shipping for all orders over $200. Being able to have 6 different payment gateways where we have things like Afterpay, where you can pay in 4 interest-free installments. We have Apple Pay, we have Amazon Pay, we have just being able to put in your credit card. You can check out through PayPal, and then we have that expert customer service where we're consistently checking in with our customers, making sure that they're satisfied, getting that feedback from them. Also being able to have that VIP clienteling experience, being able to hop on the phone with the customer and walk them through something, and help them take their measurements so that they can feel confident knowing that these products and these brands that they've never heard of will actually be something that they really love and appreciate. And so we solved most of the major problems by actually moving the product from the continent to here. So by actually storing the products here, we're eliminating the need for designers themselves to ship and customers having to pay that premium price. And then we're also increasing the speed. So, we're shipping at 2x the rate that the brands could ship at. So if you order something from LA, which is a big market of ours, we'll ship it within 24 to 48 hours and you can receive it within, 2 to 3 days. So that's really where we're coming in from the standpoint of we've curated this collection for you of these amazing designers. And now we've given you very seamless access to them in a way that they've never had access before. So we've been able to build a lot of great traction, and it's primarily been through organic word of mouth and also press. My press background, like I've mentioned before, I'm able to tell a really great story. I've interviewed celebrities around the world. I've interviewed emerging designers. I've interviewed people in music across arts and culture, primarily focusing on the storytelling of Black people, which is consistently been my passion, is at the core of everything that I do. How do I amplify the voices of Black people and provide opportunities to Black people? And so, having also been able to get my master's degree in African studies, that really helped me learn more about, the people that I was engaging with, and how the best way for us to communicate is for the brands to tell their stories alone. And so that's something that we heavily focus on, and that's something that we do when we're connecting our brands with different members of the press. When we're creating content of our own, we're really big into original content. So if you see that Vogue article actually came from when we launched in September of 2018. They debuted our launch. And that's actually a photo that we took in Cape Town. It was from our debut fall winter 2018 lookbook, where we actually shot it on the ground. We let the creative director and the stylist really put together the story arc on their own, and we just supplied them the clothes that would that they were supposed to tell the story behind. And so being able to connect with people on the continent to do things like that is really important for us. And we've been able to get great feedback from that. We've been by these publications like Refinery 29, BOF, Forbes, The Cut, and Vogue Business. We've been identified as that leading destination for if you want to source luxury African design, and if you want to be able to purchase it in a very seamless way. And from gaining that reputation, you're able to facilitate partnerships with companies like Farfetch, which is one of two leading platforms for luxury African design, not luxury African design, luxury design, period, where we now actually have about 10 of our brands on their platform that we sell through, which gives these brands great exposure to not only Farfetch's global luxury customer base, but to the network of luxury retailers that are also on that site. Because one thing about us is, yes, right now we may be the only ones that are selling these brands, but we don't want to always be the only ones. We want to be able to facilitate those partnerships and be able to scale these brands to a place where they're distributing through other retail channels, where they're now able to produce in larger quantities. They're now able to hire more people, increase exports out of the continent, increase employment, and really be able to make an impact on their business. And in terms of the market, as I mentioned, we're focusing on that global luxury market, and we are more so focused on millennials and Gen Z, who, according to Bain, will probably make up around 45% of the global personal luxury goods market, which is currently at $310 billion. And the e-commerce industry is 37 billion of that. And that's something that we really want to focus on, is on that e-commerce, because that's the easiest way to be able to give access to somebody in Paris, Tokyo, and Brazil, these designers in a way that a physical store could not, especially the way that travel is right now. And so the reason why we also are focusing on this brand is because we're focusing on this demographic is because these are the customers that are demanding more from the companies that they support. They are demanding that that their brands that they purchase from are making sure that their products are ethically made. They're demanding that they have some sort of story behind them. They're demanding that you are giving back and doing something good. People want to feel like they're making a good decision whenever they're buying it, not purely from this is going to be a cute standpoint, but from a standpoint of we know that by putting our money into this company, it's going to do something for someone else. And that's something that we really want to focus on. That's why we tell the stories of these designers. We let people know that, this was produced in this country, this was produced in this city for that purpose, for the folklore customer who spends their weekends at the MoMA or at the Met, who spends their holidays traveling when it's safe to do so, and exploring, different cultural artifacts when they're there. We're really catering to the curious person, someone who likes to learn, someone who, likes to enjoy, artistic things. I often say that our pieces are like wearable art. They want to carry the art with them in all of these experiences, whether it's in that museum or whether it's, on their travel, in their travels. And so to close out, I really want to talk about value. And that is something that the folklore is drastically changing the perception of what is valuable when it comes to luxury. So for so long, luxury value of the past was, okay, we have these amazing, brands like Hermes, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and Chloe. And the reason why these brands are so valued is because of how the prestige that they've held, based off of either where they're from. People always, had, even before American brands became like a very big thing, European brands were like the most high quality brands. Americans were going and buying the most, European brands because of the people and the distinguished people who would wear them. And if you really look at the definition of value, it's the regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, the worth, or usefulness of something. And for so long, we've attached value to things that were European. And so when we, get a lot of money, we're going to go buy a Hermes bag or buy a Gucci bag because it's emblematic of us having that wealth. And it's not that these products are made, some of them, but it's not that most of the products are made in these, amazing factories, and they're handmade, and they're paying their artisans and paying their designers these absorbent prices. A lot of the money that you're paying these brands is based off of the value that they hold and that they continue to uphold through big marketing campaigns, getting the biggest celebrity to reinforce the value that these brands have. And in order for the folklore to be able to really make an impact, we really need to change how people value goods. We need to change how people value goods. So with the folklore, we're placing value on exclusivity, on the quality of fabrics, on the fact that these products are handmade. They are practicing sustainable design, and you're valuing the brand and the product story. So instead of us saying, we love Gucci because Gucci is Gucci, we want you to say we love orange culture because orange culture has this story behind, their spring summer collection. We know for a fact that they had this handmade. We know the cost of how it's shipped, how much it costs to ship it from Nigeria to the US. We want people to feel like they invested in a piece and that they're getting their money's worth. We don't want them to feel like they're investing in the brand and the brand name and being able to show that they have this brand or that they have this brand. We want them to invest in quality products. We want them to invest in quality companies that have a story, that have a mission, and that are making an impact. And we just want people to really be smarter about where they're spending their money and how they're spending their money, and the impact that will have on our community, and the impact that will have on communities in the future as well.
Thank you, Amira. Wow, what a story! What a tremendous story. Wearable art. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Curated fashion. Another amazing concept. The fact that you could have something on and be, as you said, the only person on the continent with it is pretty powerful. What a powerful message that is. Great, just great story. Just a great story. Not only an entrepreneur, I mean, and a fashion designer and writer, photographer. What you said about working with the communities in Africa on helping them grow themselves, their businesses, getting them. Not only are you taking a part of it here through folklore, but then helping them get other connections to even larger retailers is an amazing. So not only from an entrepreneur, but you're almost like your own incubator for some of these businesses. You're taking them and you're bringing them here
Mhm.
to North America and introducing them. What a powerful message. When you're doing that, when you're on the continent and you're working through these types of issues, who do you typically wind up partnering with? Do you see it? Is it local governments? Is it other entrepreneurs in Africa? Business people, larger companies. Who typically do you surround yourself with as part of that?
On the continent, I surround myself with designers. Those are the people who I collaborate with the most. So, you know, not many governments are investing in fashion. Local governments in Africa are investing in fashion the way that I think that they should. Um, a lot of money is invested in things like fintech. It's invested in agriculture, things that are more of a safe bet that people assume that are more of a safe bet. When people hear about fashion, it's kind of like, oh, okay, like what can fashion do? But I mean, when you see companies like LVMH that employ thousands of people around the world, like apparel and just like production and export of apparel is like one of the biggest employers in terms of industry wise, one of the biggest employers. And so it's not something that a lot of governments are investing in, even outside of Africa. To be honest, a lot of this stuff is based off of like the brands and corporations, private equity firms, venture capitalists who are really injecting the money and building that infrastructure. And so when I'm on the continent, that's who I'm speaking to. I want to know what the brands need. I want to be able to talk to them about what it is other than distribution that they need. Is it on the press side? Is it on the production side? Is it on how a pattern maker? Those are the people that I want to collaborate with because I'm building this company alongside of them. So at the end of the day, their success is my success.
Yeah, it clearly comes across. It's a very collaborative process.
Yeah.
Did you ever think when you started out that the logistical side would be, I mean, you had on your slides there the logistical side. Well, what a giant effort that must have been.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for the first like year and a half, I actually, well, my mom packed a lot of the stuff when I was in South Africa, and then when I got back, I packed a lot of the stuff. So it was like me and one other person working at the company for like this first, that first year and a half, and it wasn't until maybe September that we actually were able to say, okay, we have a little bit of money behind us, let's go and amp up what we can do, and that's when we moved to our 3PL. And so, now with 3PL and the way that things are connected on the back end, it's an automated system now. It definitely allows us to ship in a more convenient and cost-effective manner.
Absolutely. Now, how about from a foundational standpoint? When you're in the fashion and magazines, and how'd you find making the shift over? Was it a good foundation? Was it complementary? Was it completely different?
So I love research. And one compliment that I used to always love to get from the people that I was interviewing was, "That's a good question," or like, "I've never been asked that question before." So I always prided myself in doing a lot of research. I find myself as like an African American studies, major, and having done that as a master's program, it was all about research. Research papers, writing that 100-page thesis while I was building this company. It was just all I did was research. And so I really I think I had a list of 100 questions that I needed to answer before I could launch this business. And I used those 100 questions that I answered as my business plan. And I was able, to kind of put that in a more structured format of a traditional business plan and be able to continue to update that as I went. I was someone who thought, okay, I answered 100 questions. Nothing should come my way that's unexpected. And I realized day two that was realistic. And so that's when I, definitely started to talk to more people and get more insight from people who've done it before. And that's something that I value a lot more now and that I spend a lot more time doing. And I was a little bit more reluctant to do it at the beginning because it's, hard to ask for help. I was I think 22 when I launched this. But now being 25, I'm like, okay, I want to talk to everyone and learn about everything. And I ask very specific questions from people based off of their specialty. So definitely it wasn't as hard because to me, it was like what I traditionally do when it comes to writing, which is research and asking good questions.
You mentioned kind of role models, and you often see that with business people. Do you have your own kind of personal board of directors that you kind of call on from time to time?
Yeah, I have a few people that I just that I talk to, like some advisors. But a lot of times I'm more so like listening to people like in podcast form or listening to TED Talks. Um, a lot of the people who are like my biggest role models are not even actually in fashion. Like when I think about my role models, like when I first started, my role model was Anna Wintour when I was in high school, because I just thought I wanted to be the editor-in-chief of Vogue and things like that. And then when I started learning more about my history when I was in college, my role models quickly changed to James Baldwin and Nina Simone and all of these people that were artists in their own right, but used their art for activism. So those are really the people that I look to, that I listen to their speeches. And it's not that they're necessarily giving business advice, but they are giving advice on how to like overcome adversity, how to use your creative prowess to be able to influence the world.
100%, 100%. Now you mentioned as part of your discussion, you talked about the concept of Black uplift through economic kind of opportunities and things. Yeah. You also had a slide up that talked about the e-commerce market share and the opportunity. So it's about what, 14 or 15% of the total piece. So it seems like there's a lot of upside to that. And then with that, obviously, comes economic opportunity, which helps people grow in and of themselves, without a doubt. From a sustainability standpoint, you talked about the fabrics, the supply chain. I mean, I think you're hitting it on all cylinders, because even in the investment world, people are placing these investment types of decisions, and they want to do it with an ethical business model, and supply chain and raw material from those types of sources and things, which I think which is really fascinating. And as you grow that, and as you continue to foster that as kind of an approach, I would think the people that would like to people like to kind of surround themselves with the people that kind of this is I'm from the same kind of philosophy, from that side of the street, and I would think the opportunity for you to grow the business in those circles, and then as those circles become then they kind of keep working their way out, is really the opportunity is astronomical. But when you think about and maybe this will be our last question, diversity and inclusion, sustainability, the whole concept of ESG, these have become very from a business standpoint very, very crucial business topics. It's a boardroom kind of discussion now at most types of meetings, and it strikes me that, I mean, you're out in front of it, right? And you're kind of leading the way as you go through that. Any comments just on inclusivity in general that you'd like to make?
Yeah, I definitely think about diversity and inclusion as something that is going to, in order for it to be applied in a way that is actually going to benefit people of color. In my case, I'm talking specifically to Black people, is that they're going to have to change the way that the industry works, not from a standpoint of just, oh, we need to hire more people, but when you hire more people, now is your environment going to be conducive to those people? It's not okay to hire 10 more Black people when you have an environment that's not conducive to, or does not speak to how Black people need to be treated. And it's not like we're asking for special we're not asking for special treatment, but we're asking for decent treatment, like the treatment that everyone else gets, which oftentimes is not the case. I've been the only Black person at a magazine before, or I've been the only Black person at a company before, and there were so many microaggressions, there were so many things. So it's not just the diversity part is hiring, but often people forget about the inclusion part. Yep. You've hired them, 100%. Now now make us feel included. And then from the standpoint of how the industry works from a business standpoint, you have to meet us where we are. So we were not given the same opportunities. We've not been given the same resources. And so to expect us to measure up to your standards in your business model in order to work work with you, that's just going to continue to alienate us. So if you're saying that we need to invest $10,000 to get on your platform, and then after that, we'll make a bunch of money. Yeah, another company might have $10,000 to get on your platform, and that business model might work for them, but you're alienating a whole, race of people who typically don't have $10,000 to just spend to get on a platform. So if you want us on that platform, it's okay if you want to still charge everyone else 10K, but knowing that you might have to let us on that platform for free and then allow us to make money, and then have some sort of payment plan set up. Like, we can't continue to try to bang on the door to get in when we get in, we don't even have the tools to be able to to uplift ourselves and to be able to really make money, and to be able to have a business that will sustain over the next, decades, 2 decades. We should be able to pass down our businesses to, our kids, or if not our kids, pass it down to like our associate designer. So really understanding that if you really care about diversity and inclusion, you have to make drastic changes. It can't be initiatives and it can't be programs. You have to change your business model in order for you to consistently be able to work with us. And also recognizing that if you are lowering, okay, if we're no longer going to, make that person pay $10,000 to get on the platform, we bring additional value now. We bring the value of, when people are putting Black Lives Matter out there, when people are saying, we're teaming up with this Black company, that's actually building, that we're providing social capital, not only from the standpoint of you are now looking good, by working with us, but also from the standpoint of Black people right now, when it comes to culture, when it comes to Twitter, when it comes to creativity, we're pushing the culture forward. We're creating, these unique things. We're making, nothing, we're making something out of nothing. And so recognizing that, yeah, you might let us on your platform for free, but what we can do while we're on that platform, the value that we'll bring from the standpoint of creativity, from the standpoint of we have beautiful products, from the standpoint of these are going to sell, we just need the opportunity. That's something that, don't look at it as, oh, we're giving them a handout of this is charity. You're going to make money out of this situation too. So we need to stop looking at Black people as charity cases and looking at them as business partners.
The I part is always probably the most challenging when you're dealing with diversity and inclusion. And it kind of reminds me of what you said about value. But in a way, inclusivity is kind of the same way. It's the regard that something is held to deserve, right?
Yeah.
It kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Mm-hmm.
As you get the message out on the folklore and stuff, I noticed that you've been doing a lot of podcasts, and thank you for joining us today.
Yep.
How about the types of things you talk about in other forums? Because I know you had a number of webinars or podcasts here in 2021 so far.
Yeah. I just talk about Black people. That's like my favorite thing to talk about. Talk about Black people and how great we are in terms of like culture, art. That's like I know it's oftentimes people shy away from like, oh, I don't want to, as a journalist, I don't want to be the Black journalists who are just assigned the Black stories or just talking about Black things. And that's fair. You should be able to talk about what you want to talk about. But I actually enjoy learning about my people, amplifying their voices, and being able to, number one, focus on, economic uplift. And number two, just focus on sharing and amplifying voices and art and culture.
Have you ever thought about, you think about like the concept of fashion merchandising at a university? You ever thought about designing kind of a course or a program around that?
So my retirement plan is actually to teach. So I actually want to go back and get my PhD in African American studies. But I think I'd probably just talk about history. I think, once I'm done with fashion, I think I'm going to be done with fashion. I want to teach history.
I'm a big believer in you got to know where you come from and know where you're going. So
Yeah.
I wish you lots of luck. Well, listen, what a delight. What a wonderful story that you shared with us today. Thank you for being part of our Leading Entrepreneurs of the World um, webinar here today. We celebrate all of your innovative work here at the Folklore, the people you're helping, the brands that you're growing, the economic uplift you're giving to communities. It's really a remarkable story. And thank you for spending time with us today and sharing such a wonderful story with us today. And we wish you nothing but the best and much success in the future and continued best wishes and good luck.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And if anyone wants to follow us at the Folklore, you can go to thefolklore.com and follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at the Folklore. And you can follow me at Amira Rasool.
You can count on it. Thanks, Amira. Take care of yourself. Thank you for being with us today. Be well.
All right. Bye.